Hi, as always, here's our story recap video for this week. So it's another chance for you to watch our story from Big Fish this week. And as always, at the end, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions just to make you think a little bit more about the story and just what it means to you. So our story this week is all about someone really, really important. It's all about this guy by here. Now, I wonder if you can guess what kind of job you think he might have done. Now, hopefully you guessed that you thought that he was a soldier. And I want to tell you, he was a soldier in the king of Aram's army. He was a soldier called Naaman. That's not a name you hear very often nowadays, is it? But that was his name. He was called Naaman. And Naaman probably had to do chest expanding exercises each morning just to fit all of the medals that he had across his chest. He was a really, really important general in the king of Aram's army. He had lots of friends, he had lots of money, he had a wonderful family, some great children. You would imagine that he would be really, really happy, but actually at the beginning of our story today, Naaman was actually very, very sad. And let me tell you why that was. You see, Naaman started the day, like I'm sure all of you did today as well. He got up and he started to have a bit of a wash and he was scrubbing away with the water and the soap and that kind of thing. And, well, then he noticed it. There was a spot on his hand. Oh, that's odd, he thought. Better clean that off. So he scrubbed a bit harder. It was still there. He tried again. But no matter what he did, Naaman couldn't get rid of the spot. Naaman realized just what it was. Naaman realized that he had a skin disease called leprosy. Now, don't worry if you have a spot on your hand or your skin or somewhere like that, because actually we don't get leprosy in this country. And actually even now today, even where you do get leprosy, there are medicines that can help to treat it. But back in Naaman's day, there was nothing that they could do to sort it out. In fact, what would happen is if you discovered you had leprosy, you would be sent to live in a special town outside the city, outside away from where everyone else lived, and you would be there just with the other people who had leprosy. I wonder, do you think that Naaman was going to have a great and exciting life after this point? No, he probably wasn't, was he? And you know, the Bible tells us that there's something that stops us from having the best and most exciting and amazing life we can have as well. And I call it a kind of disease. Now, it's not a skin disease like leprosy, but it's actually, I call it this kind of disease by here. I call it eye disease. Because actually, the thing that stops us from having the best thing is when we sort of say, well, I want what I want. And we can be like that, can't we, sometimes? Perhaps we see something that one of our friends have got in the playground or something like that, and we say, well, I want that and I want it now. And we're thinking about ourselves rather than thinking about other people. We're thinking about how we want to live our lives our way rather than what God has in store for us. And you know, the Bible has a word for that eye disease. The Bible calls it sin. And it says that it causes a great big problem because it separates us from God. And it stops us from getting to know Him, the one who made and created us, the one who loved us. And it stops us from getting to be with Him. Well, anyway, back to Naaman. He was packing up his bags and all the things to go off to live in this place outside the city where the people with leprosy lived. And that's when a servant came to his wife. Now, this servant, Naaman, had actually brought back from Israel when he'd gone there with the army. And she said to his wife, she said, Mrs. Naaman, there's actually a man, a great man of God who lives in my old country. A man of God called Elisha. Just like mine and Becky's son Elisha, but it wasn't that Elisha, it was a different Elisha. In fact, we named our son after this Elisha. And she said, Elisha, I'm sure that if Naaman went to see Elisha, then Elisha would be able to heal him. Really, thought Naaman? Could it be possible? Would this man of God, Elisha, really be able to sort out the leprosy and mean that I could carry on my life? That would be amazing, that would be incredible. So Naaman went to see the king of Aram and he said, King, please, please, please let me go to see Elisha. And the king said, Naaman, you're one of my favourite generals of all. Of course I will let you go and see Elisha. In fact, I'm going to write a letter to the people of that country to ask them to help you because you're one of my favourite generals of all. And you know, that's when Naaman made the first of the many mistakes we're going to see him make during the story. Because you see, Naaman rushed back home as fast as he could, and he went to half of his servants and he said to half of his servants, go and get the finest clothes that we have and pack them up to come with us. And he said to the other half, go and gather together all of my money. Because you see, Naaman wanted to take all these fine clothes and all of this money with him, because actually, well, Naaman thought that if the man of God was going to help him, that he was going to have to do this by here. Naaman thought that if the man of God was going to help him, then, well, he was going to have to, well, pay for that help. And you know, actually, we sometimes make this mistake as well, don't we? We sometimes think that if we're going to sort out the problem of our eye disease, the thing that separates us from God, that we have to sort of pay God back to sort it out. And we might say things like, God, I'll be good for an entire week, and then that will be okay, won't it? But you know, the Bible says there's nothing that we can do to pay to sort out this by ourselves. Because we know, don't we, that no matter how hard we try to be good, we sometimes think things that are wrong, or we say things that are wrong, or we do things that are wrong, or we just have wrong inside of us. And actually, there's nothing that we can do to pay for all of those wrong things by ourselves. But the great and amazing news is that actually someone has paid the price for us so that we can be forgiven. But I'll tell you about that in a bit. Well, anyway, Naaman gathered up his servants, he gathered up some of his soldiers, and he started to head off towards Israel. And as he was making his way towards Israel, that's where he made, well, the second mistake. You see, as he was going along, he knew that he needed to go and see the man of God, Elisha. But as he was traveling, he thought, well, I'm a really big and important general. I think I should go and see, well, this person by here. So let me just colour that in by there. Let me give it a bit of an outline so you can see it a bit clearer. Now, hopefully you can work it out from my picture who Naaman went to see. But let me tell you, he went to go and see the king. And he went before the king and he gave him the letter from his king. And the king opened up the scroll and he started to read. And it said, "This is my favourite general of all, Naaman. He has leprosy. I want you to heal him." Suddenly, all of the colour drained out of the king's face. What am I going to do? What does the king of Aram think that I'm able to do? I'm just a king. I'm no one really important. There's no way that I can heal his general of leprosy. What am I going to do? You see, the king didn't know what to do, and there was nothing that he could do, because actually, well, Naaman had gone to the wrong one of these. Naaman had gone to see the wrong person. He was meant to go and see the man of God, Elisha, but instead he'd gone to the king. And you know, sometimes we go to the wrong person to try and sort out the problem that we have of all those things that we think and say and do that are wrong, that separate us from God. Do you know, sometimes people will go and try and see a priest hoping that he can sort out the problems or things like that. But you know, the Bible says there's only one person who can sort out this problem. But I'll tell you about that in a bit. But you know, we know, don't we, that we need to go and see the right person when we have a problem. Because when we have a problem in school or something like that, we need to make sure we go and speak to our teacher, because they're the right person to sort it out. And you know, it's just the same for this as well. That if we're going to sort out the problem that separates us from God, we need to go to the only person who can sort it out. Well, the king was panicking. He didn't know what to do at all. But then along came a servant from the man of God, Elisha, and said, "King, don't you worry. Send Naaman to see my master Elisha, and all will be okay." Whew, thought the king. Everything's going to be fine. So he sent Naaman to go and see Elisha. So Naaman got on his horse with his soldiers, and he rode off to go to Elisha's house. And he arrived at Elisha's house, and he thought, well, I'm a big and powerful and important general. I'm sure that Elisha will come straight out, wave his hands over me, and he'll heal me, and all will be fine, and I can go back to my own country. So Naaman stood there, and he waited. And he waited. And he waited. And there was no sign of Elisha. And as Naaman was waiting, wondering what was going on, suddenly the door started to open. He thought, okay, here we go. Here comes Elisha. And out from the house stepped Elisha's servant. Oh, that's odd, thought Naaman. But Elisha's servant said, "Naaman, Elisha has been speaking to God. and God has said that he is going to heal you. What you need to do is you need to go down to the River Jordan and you need to wash 7 times in the River Jordan. What? Said Naaman. Isn't Elisha going to just come out and wave his hands over me and I'm going to be healed or something like that? No, said the servant. No, you need to go down to the River Jordan and you've got to wash 7 times in the River Jordan. What? This is useless. This is pointless. Why am I here? You see, Naaman, even though he'd been told that God was going to heal him, Naaman didn't like this by here. He didn't like the plan. He didn't like the plan that God had for how he was going to heal him. And you know, sometimes we don't like the plans in our life, do we? Perhaps you come into school in the morning, your teacher tells you just what the plan is for the day and you think, oh, that sounds boring, I don't like that. But actually your teachers have got that plan because they know what's best for you. And actually, do you know, God knows what's best for us more than anybody else. And actually, he has an amazing plan to sort out the problem of the things that we think and say and do that are wrong. But lots of people don't like that plan because it involves saying a word, but saying it in a way that we mean it. A little word we often don't like saying, which is sorry. But we need to say sorry to God, but in a way that says that we really, really mean it. That actually we're saying, God, I'm really sorry that I've gone my own way, that I've done my own thing. God, I want to make you the boss of my entire life. That actually that's God's plan to sort out the problems that we have so that we can get to know him once again. Well, Naaman was furious. He said, this is pointless, this is useless. He ran, he jumped on his horse and he galloped away as fast as he possibly could. His soldiers looked at each other, they thought, we better get after him, I've got no idea where he's going to get to in this kind of furious mood. And so they jumped on their horses and they raced after him. And eventually they caught up with him, sat down by the side of the River Jordan. And one of his bravest soldiers went across to try and see what was going on. And just as the soldier got there, Naaman turned around and he said, have you seen this river? This is the most dirty, disgusting, horrible river I have ever seen in my whole entire life. Back in our country, we've got some amazing and incredible rivers. Why can't I just go and wash in one of those rivers? Why does it have to be this dirty, disgusting river by here? You see, Naaman still hadn't learned his lesson. Not only had he messed up in thinking that he was going to have to pay to get things sorted, not only had he gone to the wrong person to try and deal with the problems he had, not only had he rejected the plan that God had for him, but actually he didn't even like this thing by here. He also didn't like the place where God had said that he was going to sort out his problem. And you know, it's the same for us as well. You see, the place where God was going to sort out the problems that we have wasn't a very nice place either. You see, the place where God sorted out everything for us was actually the place where Jesus died on a cross. Because you see, the Bible says that as Jesus died on that cross, he was actually, paying the price for all the things that we've done wrong. He took all those things upon himself so that we, if we followed God's plan and turned to him, the only person who could sort out that problem, and said we were sorry, we could be forgiven. You see, the reason that Jesus was the only person who could sort out that problem is because Jesus is the only person who's ever lived on this earth and never done anything wrong. And so actually, by us turning and saying we're sorry to him, he would pay for all the things we've done wrong and in exchange give us his perfect and amazing and incredible life so that one day when we stand before God, he would look at us, see Jesus' amazing life in us and say, welcome into heaven. And what we need to do to know that is to follow God's plan, to turn and say, God, I'm sorry that I've messed up. I'm sorry that I've gone my own way. God, I want to trust and follow you. And I know if I do that, then you will forgive me. You'll make me part of your family. And one day I'll get to be with you in heaven forever. Well, Naaman still wasn't sure what he was going to do. So one of Naaman's brave soldiers went across to him again and said, Naaman, I'm wondering, if the man of God Elisha had said to you that you needed to tiptoe around the edge of a boiling hot volcano and you'd be healed, would you have done it? Well, of course, said Naaman, I'm a big and strong and courageous soldier. Oh, said the soldier. Naaman, I wonder, if Elisha had said you had to dangle by your fingertips over a shark-infested lake, would you have done that? Well, of course, said Naaman. I'm a big and strong and courageous soldier. I can do anything like that. Well, Naaman said, the soldier, he's just said that you need to go and wash in the river. If that's the plan, if that's how things are going to be sorted, well, why don't you try it? And Naaman thought, maybe he's right. Maybe I need to give it a go. And so Naaman decided to get up from where he was and to go into the river to give it a go. And so, as Naaman stepped into the river, it would have been a bit like squelch, squelch. It would have been horrible and disgusting. He probably had to hold his nose because it smelled so bad. And he thought, okay, here goes. What am I going to do? He plunged himself down under the water. He came back up. He looked at his hand. He said, it's useless. There's no point. Look, nothing's happened. I don't know why I bothered to do this. What was wrong? That's right. He didn't just have to wash once in the river. He had to wash 7 times in the river. So that's just what he did. Why don't you count with me? We've done 1. So here we go. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Naaman came up out of the water. He looked at his hand and a great huge smile spread across his face. The leprosy had gone. God had healed him because he'd followed the plan that God set out for him. And you know, just like God promised Naaman that if he followed his plan, he would be healed. So God has said that actually, if we follow the plan that he has for our lives, by turning and saying we're sorry and putting our trust in Jesus, then actually he'll heal us of our eye disease. He'll clean us up on the inside, make us brand new, give us a brand new life, a brand new start with him, and that we'll get to be in his family and get to be with him forever. That actually, I did that a number of years ago. You know, when I was probably a similar age to what some of you are now, somebody explained to me all about the cross and what Jesus had done for me there and how actually he wanted me to know that new life in him. And I said, Jesus, I'm really sorry that I've done my own things. I'm sorry I've gone my own way. Jesus, will you please forgive me and let me live my life for you? And I know that because I did that he cleaned me up on the inside. He made me part of his family. And one day I'll get to be with him in heaven forever. Not because I've been good, but because I've got Jesus' perfect record inside of me. And so that's the story about Naaman and how he made many mistakes trying to sort out his problem, but actually, when he listened and followed the plan that God had for him, everything was okay. And actually how, if we trust and follow the plan that God has for us, the plan that happened when Jesus died on that cross, then we can know that we've been cleaned up, sorted as well, and can one day be with him. And you know, you might be thinking, well, Steve, you often talk about that kind of thing, about how we can know that new life in Jesus. And actually, if you want to know a little bit more about how you can do that, then don't hesitate to get in touch with me or Becky, and we'll love to tell you and explain a bit more so that you yourself can know what it means to trust in Jesus in your own life. Well, I hope you enjoyed that story just as much as you did the first time, if not even more. But here's 3 questions just to make you think a little bit more about that story and how it affects you. So, Naaman made lots of mistakes in the story. The first one was that he thought, didn't he, that he was going to have to pay the man of God, Elisha, to get things sorted out. And actually, what ways do we try to pay God to sort out the things that are wrong in our life? We try different things, don't we? But we know that none of them will ultimately work. But the next one then is, well, he went to the wrong person, but who is the only person who can actually sort out those things that we've done wrong in our lives, what I call eye disease, the Bible calls sin, that separates us from God? Who is the only person who can deal with that? And the last one then, question 3, is that Naaman didn't like the plan, did he, of going to have to wash in the River Jordan. But what was God's plan to sort out those things that are wrong in our lives? What did God do to make everything right so that if we follow that plan, we could be part of his family and be with him forever? Some questions that we really have to think about this week. And as we always say, if you're not sure of the answers, don't hesitate to message us, and we'd love to help you work through and understand just what the Bible says about all of these things. But we hope you've enjoyed our story recap this week, and we look forward to seeing you in Big Fish Kids Club next Thursday. Bye.